description says, we're going to be talking today about life beyond dieting, right? Life beyond dieting and food obsession. What does that actually look like, and how can you do that? Because a lot of times when you've been stuck in this sort of mentality and mindset with, maybe going from diet to diet to diet, or if you're just, constantly thinking about food, it's hard to really see what it looks like beyond. And it's hard to even gauge, what does that even look like? Is it even possible? Or sometimes you might be unaware that dieting has been taking a hold of you, and being able to release and let go of that, you may not have even recognized that that would be something to do. All right, so many times when dieting and food obsession is honing in on you, and it's like a main thing, what does it look like if you didn't have it? So if you were constantly thinking about food and dieting, what it would look like if you had a life beyond it is that you don't have to calorie count. You aren't macro counting. You aren't tracking your food. You aren't tracking your calories. You aren't tracking your workouts. You don't have strict rules. There's no labeling, in the sense that there's no good versus bad in terms of food or you. There isn't healthy versus unhealthy. There isn't like garbage or junk food versus clean eating. There's just food, right? And that really can take away that labeling. There's no weighing yourself. There's no, as in with scales, or like I had done a post before about keeping clothes that don't fit, and you purposely try them on as a self-sabotaging way to really be like, well, obviously you're not doing it, type thing. That's a definitely way of weighing yourself. And, not really intense exercising, in the sense that you don't have this specific regime or schedule that you're doing that you have to adhere to. So that's what really life beyond dieting would be. It also includes being able to go out to eat without having to look at the menu or knowing what ingredients are in the food or the calories with it. Being able to be okay with having a spur of the moment catered in lunch at work or something like that, or being able to go out to eat with friends and family and not stress over it if you hadn't planned for it, right? So having the life beyond dieting really is open up to so many things that are not stressful. They're worry-free, and you can finally get in touch with you again and have a life for you that doesn't involve around food or even exercise too, right? And I had talked yesterday about exercise, because in the group, today's Friday, so on Wednesday in the group I asked about what is your favorite form of self-care, and a lot of things, and a lot of people responded usually with like the gym, running, weightlifting, something active in that sense, or something in an exercise component. And I do want to clarify this, because I see it a lot, and it also goes into another point I'll get to, but there is a difference between really enjoying the physical movement and allowing it to where you actually feel really good about it, like you feel energized, it gets you pumped for the day and things like that, versus using it as a way to potentially compensate for, eating or what you might be eating. If you have an inability to actually stop exercising when you are sick or injured, say you're not feeling well, but you are supposed to be going to the gym today, so you still go because you can't not go, type thing, or being afraid, like I said, if you're afraid of suddenly getting fat because for some reason you didn't work out one day, right? Like it freaks you out knowing that you didn't work out that day, or oh my gosh, it's been like a couple of days, I'm gonna lose everything that I possibly tried and worked hard to do. I have to go. Like you have this need to have to go. And it also means that you probably feel guilty if you do miss that day or 2 days or things like that. Or if you're going on vacation and you have to make sure that there is a gym or something in a workout that you can do when you're there, because usually when you go on vacation, you might be a little bit lax in terms of the foods that you're eating. So you need to compensate with working out, right? And that's what I really wanted to hone in on when I saw that in the group with self-care, that was the huge thing that was coming up for a lot of people, was exercising and working out and lifting weights and things like that. So yes, physical movement is super important, but I do want to make note that you need to be honest with yourself if you're utilizing it for compensation, or if you give yourself permission to eat certain foods if you only exercise, or if you're not okay with missing a day and you freak out and feel guilty about it, right? So that was the main thing that I really wanted to talk about with that, because the life beyond dieting does also include exercise and things that you've defined yourself with in this sort of mindset and way of living. All right. And a lot of times when I bring this up with my clients and whatnot, they don't understand always, because it's something that I didn't really pay attention to either when I was going through my healing journey, because I didn't understand. I really didn't get it, because everything that I used to define myself with was with food and being active, and having those two descriptives as either like where I'm healthy, I'm eating healthy, or I'm vegan or vegetarian or plant-based, or doing like keto or Whole30, right? Like you define yourself with things that you're doing instead of being able to define yourself from internal factors, because that's usually harder to get to. It's usually harder to understand. It's harder to really grasp, so to speak, and it's easier to find those secondary symptoms or those physical symptoms. So the how-to behind this, like how do you actually find a life beyond dieting when it's sort of engulfing everything about you right now, right? It can be tricky. So the first thing is being able to actually define yourself without using a food component or an exercise component, or like a physical component, so to speak. So usually when I hear, how do you define yourself? Like everything like that. Usually I normally hear, well, I eat healthy, I'm a vegetarian, or I'm vegan, or I'm plant-based, or I'm strong, like I'm fit, I'm active, I am, physically fit, I'm muscular, like, right, we go into, or athletic, we go into these physical symptoms, these physical components, these physical descriptives, instead of turning within and be like, well, I'm kind, I'm compassionate, I like to have fun, I'm warm-hearted, like, right? Like you think about those things, we don't always do that. Like it's way harder to actually say nice things like that about yourself versus being able to just physically describe you. And I really urge you to challenge that and be able to describe yourself in terms of like the moral values that you hold dear to you, because the physical component can easily change, and that's often when we describe ourselves that and we define ourselves as that and somehow it changes, it's like it's chaos in our mind, right? Like it really can mess you up because that's not the same anymore. But you being kind, you being generous, you being courteous, you having a warm heart and a compassionate heart, like that stuff doesn't change. Like that is you. And being able to have that always really keeps you grounded. So when things do change, potentially, if something happens, like say you got sick and you can't work out for like a week, something might happen in a sense, right? But those values that you hold dear to your heart, can't talk, at that time never changes. It really doesn't. So one thing I would love for you to do into the how-to and how do you find that life beyond dieting is to be able to write down the definition of you without using physical descriptives and or food, right? You need to take that out to really help yourself get in touch with you. It can be tricky. This one was hard for me because I never could say anything nice about myself. It really, really was hard. Like say you went to a job interview and they're like, tell me your strengths versus tell me your weaknesses. Like I could easily tell you weaknesses because that was hard. Anytime I had to talk nice, anytime I had to actually say a strength, right? Like that was tricky. That was hard because it did not feel right. It didn't feel real because it was going against what I had been telling myself for so long. So this one might be challenging if you are used to defining yourself in that philosophy of, well, I'm fit, I'm strong, I'm athletic, right? Things like that versus the other, right? Or I'm healthy, I am vegetarian, I am vegan, I'm plant-based, I whole foods, like, right? Like things like that. I'm gluten-free, I'm blah, blah, blah. Like you are defining something that doesn't really hold the true moral value about you. All right. So I would definitely do that to get you into this mindset of what would life look like beyond dieting, right? And then really be honest with yourself in terms of this. Like, if you are then one to naturally sort of go to, well, I'm healthy, I eat clean, like I'm a healthy person, things like that, and working out, like I work out all the time, I work out 5 days a week, like blah, blah, like all of that. Be honest with yourself how important that is to you and what happens if you weren't that, right? What would happen if for some weird reason, right, you could not use those definitions to describe yourself? Like, how hard would that be to be able to think of something different? So be honest why that is such a huge component about you, all right? And then the last thing really is to be able to find hobbies, find something other than food and exercise to do, right? I know that can be tricky, and I know I sometimes get resistance with this because some things do and can help you. Like if you were into yoga, if you are into running, can be therapeutic, and I understand that because I was a runner for forever, and going out for a run was therapy for me. But you also just have to pay attention to what mindset you're in and what intentions are really behind those things, if it is requiring sort of physical movement or intense physical movement. All right, so the hobbies component, because like I said, that's why I wanted to prompt the self-care question, because I know how difficult it is and how easy it is to think that you are in this right track, but then it's because you're in this linear thinking or this one-way thinking in terms of having this food obsession and or diet be a main component in your life, that it takes hold in a lot of different things. So having hobbies beyond that is super helpful to keep you finding yourself in all of this. And you're probably going to have to try things and see what you actually like, right? Because I remember I would be almost jealous actually with my husband when he had art. Like, he's the 3D artist, he does all that amazing stuff for video games and stuff like that. And in his downtime he would, draw and, do things on the computer. But I didn't have anything. Like, it was really hard for me to come up with a hobby. And the one thing that I ended up coming up with many years ago was CrossFit. Granted, all of my eating disorder tendencies and that mindset behind it just transferred over into CrossFit. So it didn't bode well for me in the end because I went into the over-exercising mentality. But then after that, I was forced almost, because due to injury, to think of other things and find things that actually I enjoy doing and have fun doing and don't get so stressed out about doing, right? And there's like a whole list of things. And I actually had to Google in the beginning different hobbies because I had no idea what I actually would enjoy doing until I actually tried some of these things. And I'm like, it's actually pretty cool. I actually like doing that stuff. So some things that you can do to try and help yourself find a life beyond dieting and really hone in on stuff that you enjoy doing would be, reading a book, getting a massage, taking a drive. Like, my husband and I actually like to go out driving and see things and find things. Like, we don't really have a true destination in mind. We just like to go out and drive and see what inspires us. Half the time we'll stop and look at stuff or explore. And then we do like a whole day thing about that. That's a lot of fun. Going for walks, right? Being out in nature, doing things like that where you aren't doing it in a sense of obviously exercising, but you're doing it because you like to be outdoors. It just feels good, especially if it's nice and sunny. Granted, I don't mind walking in the rain. It's like a therapeutic thing to be able to be outside when it's raining, and hearing it is a cool thing. Watching your favorite TV show, going to movies, doing puzzles, playing games, right? Taking a nap. It can actually be something that you might be able to do in a life beyond dieting, because a lot of times if you are sitting down, if you are not moving, if you are spending time not burning calories, you don't do that, right? You were told that you shouldn't be doing that. You should be moving. You should be doing something. In terms of that you're lazy or weak or something, if you decided that you wanted to take a nap. You should have so much energy, right? In a life beyond dieting, you could take a nap and not feel guilty and use that as a way to sort of re-energize yourself. I will say one of my favorite things to do when it is sunny is take a nap in the sun. Usually all of the animals will come join me and we just nap in the sun. It's such a refreshing thing. It really, really is. You could do gardening, right? I hated it. I never liked gardening until I was able to have sort of my own space and incorporate it. Granted, we started with succulents inside, and then it has, grown into more intense things when we're outside, but it's nice being outside in the dirt and being able to have like really bright things around me, because with my depression, I really do best when I have something bright, when it's not dreary, and I hone in on that and I utilize it in different areas as well. Yard work, right? I actually like to mow the lawn. It was fun. I didn't mind doing it. Growing up, I didn't like it. But here now, like, I actually like to do that because I'm outside. I get to be outside. So if I can find ways for myself to be out in nature and do things like that, that's a huge thing that I wasn't doing when I was in sort of the food obsession and diet mentality, because it took away from meal prepping. It took away from focusing on food. It took away from exercising, because I could be burning more calories if I did like a CrossFit workout or a HIIT workout versus mowing the lawn or gardening. Right? So you always had the one thing over the other. But when you can let that go and be able to find things that you actually enjoy doing, you have this whole slew of things that can open up for you. Dancing, right? Just having fun at home and dancing, listening to music, meditating, being able to find time to have some peace and quiet and sort of just take a breath and let things sink in. Give your mind a break, right? And be able to focus on you for 5 minutes, I started out with 3 minutes, for 10 minutes, however long it works for you. Someone in the group had like a bubble bath. That would be something you could do, right? Because a lot of times, and I've seen this before, where people didn't want to, like I had clients who didn't want to do something like that, like a self-care item, like getting a massage or doing a bubble bath, because they didn't like how they looked. They felt like they were potentially too big to be able to get a massage or go in and have like this amazing bubble bath experience at home, right? They didn't feel like they deserved it because they are doing bad with food, or they weren't doing what they should be doing. Instead of taking a bubble bath, they should be exercising, or they should be planning out how to eat healthy, right? Like, that dieting mentality takes over, and you will see it in so many different areas of your life. And when you can let go of that and find a life for you beyond it, you can actually find you again. You can learn to like yourself again and be okay with just you and being in the presence of you, right? Like, that's a huge, amazing thing, because you are with you for the long haul here, right? So would you rather be like okay and comfortable with you, or continue to try and change it and be stressed all the time and worrying about it all the time? Right? Like, I would rather just be okay and not have to worry about that. If you have animals, play with a dog, play with a cat, play with a bunny, play with a lizard, play with a snake. Like, have fun with your animals. And a lot of good one too. I'm not creative and artsy in that kind of aspect, so that would just lead to frustration more than anything. But, drawing, painting, doing artwork, doing crafts, in the sense you could be knitting and things like that, right? Having time for you, getting more in touch with you, finding what you like, finding what you don't like, but finding that space separate from food and working out is really, really important. It really, really is. And once you can have that good grasp on you and be comfortable with you and confident with you, then you can start to add other things back in. But you gotta have you first in all of this. And it can be tricky. It really, really can. You're gonna be challenged. You're gonna be probably hit with resistance, because it's gonna be going against probably your strict rules that you have for yourself and the terms and conditions that you have set for you in what you should or shouldn't be doing, right? But it's so worth it. It really, really so is worth it. All right. So when I talk about life beyond dieting and food obsession, it is a thing. It is a reality. I know sometimes it can seem like it isn't going to happen and that it's just not meant for you, but it is. It most definitely is, right? So as a recap, what is life beyond dieting, right? It's going to be no calorie counting, no macro counting, no strict rules, no labeling, right? Like no good versus bad, healthy versus unhealthy, junk food, garbage food, whatever, versus clean eating, right? You're not going to be weighing yourself. You're not going to be focusing on your body and things like that and self-sabotaging in that sense. And you aren't going to have this need for intense exercise or regime or schedule where you're worried about that. Right? And when I wanted to clarify, because in my group, I did notice that a lot of the self-care things that were coming up were exercise related. And I wanted to touch base with that. So as a recap, there is a difference between using physical movement, right, to feel good, to have that more energy, can help with sleep and focus and concentration, versus becoming very stressed about it and becoming very guilty if you don't do it and becoming very strict and a-line in terms of your definition of exercise, right? So if for some reason you're finding that you have an inability to stop, even when you're sick or injured and you feel like you still need to, I got to do this, or if you're feeling very guilty if you missed a day, right? If you're finding that you're compensating with exercise due to eating too much or as a precursor to eating out or consuming bad foods, or if you feel that you are suddenly going to gain weight or be fat if you've missed a single day of exercise, like those are really key indicators that exercise is taking a hold of you, and that dieting mentality and that food obsession mentality is sort of getting put into exercise as well. All right. And then as a recap, how, like, okay, Katie, you told me what it is. How the hell am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to find a life beyond dieting? Like I said, the first thing you need to do is really define for yourself who you are. And I challenge you to not use physical descriptives and or food, in the sense that you don't define yourself as a healthy eater or as a vegetarian or a vegan or a plant-based or gluten-free, or where you're skinny or fit or lean or muscular or athletic or any type of, even if you call yourself overweight or fat or things like that. Like, take those out, because they are not useful and they only hinder your progress in this, and it only keeps you in that mindset that hurts you. It really, really does. So define yourself using other true descriptives that really hone in on your moral values, and being kind, being compassionate, right? Having a nice, like, warm heart, like things like that, to be able to find you for you, being courageous, being brave, right? Like things like that. And then find your hobbies. Find what you like. Find what you don't like, right? When you try things, it's not like a pass or fail. It's not like you've tried a list of things, you're like, well, shit, I don't like that. Obviously, I'm not doing well. Like, no, everyone has likes and dislikes in all of this. You're finding you. You're being able to cross things off that list and being able to really get comfortable and confident with you and what you like and what you don't like, right? So you could be reading a book, you can have a massage, like you have a bubble bath, you could, garden, yard work, take a nap. Like I said, that's like one of my favorite ones. Go for a walk, watch TV, go to a movie, do puzzle. Like, there's a whole list of things. And if you are ever like, I don't even know where to begin, you could totally like Google hobbies. I had to do that in the beginning too, to really get a list of things to do that do not involve food and or exercise. Okay? So, if you have questions, if you have comments and concerns, when you're like, I don't even know where to begin, let me know, right? Let me know in the comments. And if you're finding that you need help with this, if you struggle and say you've tried this before and then you feel like you failed at it, right? Like it was too much, you're getting too much in your head and whatnot, I will put my calendar in the comments below, and we can schedule a free call to see how we can get you back on track and we can get you back to finding that life beyond dieting and food obsession, because you, my friend, deserve it so much. You do not need to be stuck in this mindset where food has taken over, or this need to be in this constant dieting mentality is taking over. All right, so I'll put my calendar in the comments below, and we can schedule a time for that free consultation. Alrighty?